What's up, everyone? Sam here from Wall Street Mastermind. I'm back here today with another client interview for you guys. Today, I have Megan with us. Megan is an international student from Vietnam who goes to a very small non-target school, and she joined Wall Street Mastermind, I think, back in December of her sophomore year. And so she's been just very focused on breaking into investment banking for the past, geez, it's been almost a year or so, and it's definitely been a long,
Yeah,
it's definitely been a long journey. But
it is a long journey.
we're glad to say that obviously the fact that she's here on this interview with us, we were able to get to a very happy outcome for her. So I wanted to get Megan on here today to talk to you guys about her experience. I know I talk to international students all the time who are trying to get into investment banking, and there's a lot of questions around how you do it and if it's even possible. And so, Megan, thank you for taking the time today to talk to us.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, maybe I introduce a little about myself.
Yeah, if you
Yep.
could tell people a
So
little bit about your
awesome.
background and kind of like what kind of candidate you are on papers, just so kind of people have a sense for, what type of like who you are and how similar you are to them.
Sure. Like, tell me about tell you about my resume. Sure. So my name is Megan. So I'm come from a non-target college in a suburb of Boston. I major in financial economics, and I got like 3.8-ish GPA. And what kind of experiences? So I did a Big Four internship in a transaction advisory services back in Vietnam. And later than that, I did an internship for the regional boutique investment banking firm back in Vietnam too. And yeah, now I'm landing an investment banking internship in the United States in a book bracket.
Got it. Got it. Okay, cool. So, obviously, as an international student, most of your work experiences were back in your home country
Yeah, exactly.
up to this point because it's hard to kind of intern here, right? Um, can you talk a little bit about just kind of like what were the challenges you were having with recruiting prior to joining Wall Street Mastermind?
So yeah, I think I have a lot of challenges. So I started to learn English very late in grade nine.
Hmm.
So I was not very good at speaking at first, especially when investment banking is a big business that involved in a lot of networking.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge. The second challenge is that I'm an international student. So I have a lot of problem with the visa sponsorship that I don't have a lot of options because some banks just specifically say they just don't sponsor.
Right.
And so that's about my background. And second, like on top of that, so during the time in my college, I didn't get involved in a lot of relevant extracurriculars. I was not the investment club in my on my campus is not very strong. Or
Hmm.
I don't have like equity societies like many other business school. So I don't have the alumni network because of that. And
Hmm.
in my school, I just have like a bunch of alumni in investment banking. By saying a bunch, it's like five or six, and which is not resourceful.
Hmm.
And and also I don't know, so because I don't have any alumni, so I don't have any help, so I don't really know how to to pitch my resume, how to write a simple things as a cover letter, because I don't have expectation like what should I write. And also I don't have any support, so I just don't know where to start, and I didn't practice a lot with the interviews.
I
So
see.
there's just a lot of things happening, mostly in lack of guidance.
I see. So biggest thing, it sounds to me like primarily came down to two things. One is the fact that you're an international student and you didn't start learning English until you were in ninth grade, which by the way, your English now is, I would say,
Thank you.
pretty pretty amazing considering it hasn't been that long.
There's a
Um,
lot of late night studying.
yeah, I mean, I from, I was born in Taiwan myself, and I moved to the States when I was 9, though, so that was
Yeah,
like
I heard.
earlier, right?
Yep.
But I have friends that didn't start learning English until ninth grade or later, and their English is horrible. So,
That's
um,
that. Like, okay.
no,
Thank you.
and it's not their fault. It's that like I think they've
It's
done,
hard.
yeah, they've done studies on this, but like, um, for humans, like I think the part of our brain that learns new languages, it's, I think, like pretty developed by the time we're past like a certain age,
I
like
think so.
fourth, fifth, or sixth grade or something like that. And so like after that, it's just biologically difficult to learn new
Yeah, I heard
languages
that
just
too.
because fluent. So I think what you've been able to do is pretty amazing. But nonetheless, you're not a native speaker, right? Which in a business like investment banking, and especially for the recruiting process where it requires you to do so much networking, and obviously all the interviews are in English. I think there's somewhat of a language barrier, right? And then secondly, um, I mean, how many banks would you probably don't have the exact count, but like out of all the banks that you try to talk to, like what percentage of them would you say probably told you that, we just don't sponsor international students?
So I would not say the name, but some banks specifically have like a star, like a note on every single of the email saying that we don't sponsor at any circumstances.
Hmm.
Some banks say that we sponsor some people, but they reject right away. So I feel like there may be some like policy that don't let them say upfront that they don't sponsor.
Hmm.
But well, for my year, I don't know like different year because different years will be different case
Hmm.
by case. But for my year, it's just a bunch of banks, like 4 or 5 that I know for sure sponsors.
You found 4 or 5 banks that for sure sponsored, you said.
Yeah, because some banks just say that. So some banks just say upfront like they don't sponsor, which is most of the banks.
Hmm.
But some banks just say they sponsor on a limited basis, but they don't
Yeah.
because I feel like I got screened out. My resume just got screened out.
Yeah.
And that's just what I found out. Just I remember my years, maybe 4 or 5 banks that I
Yeah, I think
know
you're right.
sponsor.
And I think you're right in saying that, the list of banks that sponsor kind of changed from year to year. Like for other international students who might be listening to this right now, how did you go about figuring out which banks would actually sponsor you and which banks would? Did you just have to do that through networking, or how did you go about doing that?
So exactly, I go through networking. So I cold email people, I talk to people, and then usually you can talk to bankers and they will bring you to HR, or you can start with HR and say, so are you guys sponsored?
Right.
Or you can look at, so for example, if there's any Vietnamese people, like for me, working at the bank, like if they do, there might be a chance. If
Right.
there's none, you should go ask.
Right.
Yeah, that's one of
And
those.
and honestly, I mean, there's so many horror stories with that. It's like it's so important for you to be really clear with the banks and find that out early on, right? Because
Yeah,
I was just telling Megan right before we hopped on this call. I have another client who's an international student. He just went through an entire process with the middle market bank. I won't name names on here, but with the middle market bank that most people have probably heard of. And he went all the way through the super day. They gave him the offer this morning, and then a couple hours later, he messaged me. He was so happy, and then a couple hours later, they reached out and told him, "Oh, actually, we have to take the offer back. We're rescinding the offer because you're an international
that's
student. We
very
can't."
sorry about that.
Yeah, and he
I
was like,
have some
"Oh my
friends have
god."
something like that too, and that's just devastating.
Yeah, and he was like, "What do I do? Like, can I convince them that I'm gonna get a green card soon or something?" And I was like, "I don't know. It's gonna be pretty hard." But like, you just don't want to run into a situation where you put so much time and effort and energy and go through the entire process,
Exactly.
and then have it all be wasted, right? And I think to be honest, I'm not naming names because it's also a little bit unprofessional on the bank's part. I feel like for them
Exactly.
to not find out earlier whether someone is international or not if they know they're not gonna, sponsor those people,
Sponsor.
right? So, and you had a friend that you were telling me that had a slightly different experience, but
Yeah, I have a friend that he finished the first, like the summer analyst experience, and it turns out they don't sponsor later on. So it's just, so for banks, I think it's just hard to know. Sometimes they don't tell you upfront. So it's good that you ask them like until you know the answer for sure. Because when I did a networking, I remember I branched out to all the banks, and some of them just didn't say that they don't sponsor, and we keep talking to them, like spend a lot of time branching out within that bank.
yeah,
And in the end, it wastes a lot of my times, and I found out it doesn't sponsor,
yeah.
and I don't think that's a fair game. And also, it's not a good way to invest my time. So it's just something that people like, for example, international student like me should
Yeah.
um, think about it.
Yeah, and for your friend, it's even worse because she already went through
Ooh,
the summer
yeah,
internship, and then they're like, "Oh,
yeah,
we don't get full time offers to summer interns." Now she has to recruit for full time and tell people that
yeah,
she didn't get a return
exactly.
offer, which
And
makes
that's even worse.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
even worse, right? Like she probably wouldn't have interned there in the first place if she knew that that was going to happen. So, anyway, for those of you who are international students that are listening, like you got to be very, very careful with that. It is harder for you guys because a lot of banks won't sponsor, and even the ones who will sponsor, they're going to be
not
very,
sure.
they're going to be very selective about
Yeah,
who they sponsor, right? Like the bar, I would say the bar is higher for
that's what
you.
I heard too.
Yeah, the bar is higher for you guys as an international student because there's no reason for them to sponsor you if they could hire someone who already is a U.S. citizen and is about just as good as you, right?
Yeah, I think
So
so.
basically, you got to be better. So international students is a big challenge. A lot of people run into that, I know. And the other thing that you really mentioned is just the fact that you go to a very small non-target school. So there's not really a whole lot of resources or support, whether it's on campus through like student organizations and investment clubs and things like that, as well as even off campus in terms of like your alumni network. There's just not a lot of people that can help you or give you any guidance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So when you came to us, you just knew that you wanted to do investment banking, but you didn't really know how to go about recruiting for this job or how to network, and you hadn't really studied for the interviews, and you were kind of starting from the beginning, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I remember when I reached out to Sam. It's actually a very random ads on Facebook. I was quite depressed at time because I know that maybe I want to pursue investment banking because there's a lot of options. So I'm just thinking about investment banking, but I didn't know how to get it because I'm against all the odds, the international students, non-target school, and all of that. Like no network experience, like I have no backgrounds around that. So against all the odds, but then they found there's like a blank space between me and the offer. And that moment, I found you through an ad on Facebook saying that you will have a webinar, like in the next 30 minutes. So I signed up and I listened to your podcast for like 30 minutes, and I figured out that exactly what I need. Yeah, and signed up.
Got it. When you say podcast, you're referring to like one of these client interviews, like the one we're doing right now?
No, no, it's like it's just I don't remember the name, but basically you spend 30 minutes or an hour talking about what is investment banking or how to
Oh, I
get
see.
there and something like that. Yeah. So and later on you say like follow up with a free interview
Got it.
for clients, and
Got it.
I
Got
did
it.
follow up.
Got it. The
Yeah,
webinar. You watched the webinar basically.
I think so.
Got it. Okay, cool. So then, like, can you tell everyone here, like, what's your motivation for wanting to do investment banking? Like, back then, you already knew you wanted to do this, but, like, what was your reason or why did you want to do it? Because you knew it was going to be super hard, right?
Yeah, exactly. So honestly, when I first started, the reason is quite very like general, but the more I stay in the game, when it's like a lot of things throws at me and I still want to stay. So I found out my top three reason. So I did a lot of charity since high school, and I really found my life purpose and maximize my own capacity to transform that capacity into something impactful to the society. And
Hmm.
that's the two factors that I found in investment banking, especially when I done some deal back in the regional boutique investment banking firm in Vietnam. It
Hmm.
translates really well into the deals. And the last reason is about the people. I found I enjoy the conversation throughout networking, and because we share the same personality, the same ambitions, and the same visions, and also the same topic that we're talking about. So that's a big reason that drives me to apply and stay in the game
Got it.
from then to now. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, very cool. So then, prior to Wall Street Mastermind, then, had you done anything on the preparation side, or like, did you have any other resources that you were using at the time? How were you going about it?
So I tried. So I tried, let me remember. I tried to join some society, like so that I have some networking and some ideas of what is going on. I would not name it out, but it's like more a networking society. And I did
Is that
register
like a
for,
club on
I'm sorry?
campus, or is that like a
Oh,
student?
no, it's not on campus. It's out there. Yeah, it
Oh,
is
I
not
see.
on campus.
Okay,
I didn't do anything on campus about that.
got it.
And I just signed up for Wall Street Prep courses. Mostly I did all the evaluations and yeah, all the technical side of it. Yeah,
Okay.
so that's before.
Got it. So you did the networking society, which is not on campus, and then you took
Yep.
the Wall Street prep course for your evaluation and your technical prep. So how were those resources? Like, do you feel like they kind of helped you get what you need, or what do you feel like was lacking, if anything?
Oh, yeah. So personally, each of the programs I joined just focus on one aspect. So for example, the networking society just focus on networking, but there's nothing technical. For the Wall Street prep, it's just about technical. I mean, there's a lot of Excel shortcuts and that's really helpful. Like I love that. But I mean your program is more like a package. Like I can find everything within that. And also is more like I would say user friendly because I feel like your program is designed for students like me who are clueless and but like investment banking and want to explore more. So
Mm,
it's just easier for me to follow up to develop the concept. Yeah, to learn more.
got
It's a
it.
package.
I
Yep.
I appreciate you saying that. Although I don't like to think of my clients as clueless
But
candidates.
I'm clueless. I'm not gonna lie about that. Yep. You help me out.
Got it. Okay. Cool. So then you found us on this webinar. You decided to watch the webinar. Then you hopped on a call with me, and then we talked about the program. Well, actually, we talked about your situation, what you feel like you
Yep.
need help with, and then we talked about my program. And then you had to think pretty hard about it, about whether you want to join or not, right?
Yep.
Um, so like ultimately, obviously, you did join, right? What
Yeah, that's
what
why I'm talking with you right now.
yeah, what ultimately pushed you over the edge? Like, as you were thinking about the situation, like, I think a lot of times I find that, hey, when people hear about this program, like one thing I hear from people is like, oh, this sounds too good to be true, or whatever. Like when I tell people, like,
Yeah.
for example, when I tell people like, hey, of our clients that have actually gone through the program and they've done all the work and they've finished the recruiting, as of right now, our success rate is over 90%, right? So when people hear that, they're like, oh, maybe this is like a scam or something. Like it doesn't sound
Well,
real.
I thought that too. I thought that too.
Right. So then,
Like
like, how did you get over that fear, and how did you actually decide that this is something you want to do?
so I knew about your program through a Facebook ad. So
Hmm.
I didn't trust you at all. I just wanted to say that. But the
Yep.
webinar was very helpful and it just gave me exactly what I'm lack of. And that's the reason why I follow up with you. And
Hmm.
talking to you for an hour just really helped me figure it out. Like you are just your way to approach a problem is very effective. For example, like what I'm lack of what I should go to work. And you gave me some expectation like what should I focus on? What should I learn or something like that? And it gave me the expectation like what I want to help. And also the kind of mentors that I want to be with during the recruiting seasons.
Hmm.
And that's just what persuade me to pick up the calls and talk to you. But I think the most like the moment that I have to pay for the fee is really make me think because I'm a student and that's not a small amount of money
Hmm.
personally.
Yep.
But I think it's a very great way to like there's a one way to put it, I think, because investment banking is a very hard journey and any help is appreciated. And
Hmm.
also, so what I can say, if I tap leverages into the full-time offer, I think like the ROI will be so high. And that's just a good investment for me.
Hmm.
So of course I have to be like confident with my decisions to apply. So I'm comfortable with my decisions. I understand it's a good programs. I trust in you because the way that you take care of your clients, and that's the reason that I pay. And I think that's a very good decision
Right.
that I did that. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that one big reason why our program is so successful too is that by definition, the people who are willing to invest in a program like this are people who are very, very serious about getting this job, right? Like there's no one that joins this program who's most of the time, there's no one that's joining this program who's like just kind of kicking the tires or think that getting into investment banking is just a nice to have. this is like people's dream
Yeah,
job.
exactly. It's a commitment.
Yeah, it's a big commitment, and but at the same time, it's like you have to have that level of commitment if you want to beat out, 99% of the other candidates out there, right? Because like the type of banks that, especially for international students, the type of banks that will sponsor are like basically the biggest banks out there, right? And
Exactly.
those bulge bracket banks, they only accept less than 1% of the candidate pool, right? And so
Yeah,
if you're not committed enough to even invest a little bit into your own future, then you're probably not committed enough to be able to get the outcome anyway. Not just because you don't have the know-how, but because like you don't want it badly enough, right? Or at least that's what I think.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, so I think that so after I pay for the price, I become even more committed because I feel like I paid for it. So I
right,
just become more committed in my pursuit. So that I think that's partly a reason why I don't give up along the way because
right.
it's just a huge investment.
Because
Could be a good
it
point.
wasn't easy, right? It was even after. It's not like just after you join the program, then oh, everything's so easy. Like you said, there were probably still times when it felt very, very hard, and you could have given
Well,
up.
I was like miserable for a whole year. Like you can tell through like my message through Slack. Like it's very hard. And I just want to say like the amount of money that I put in is not the most expensive thing. It's also about like a lot of trades off besides the money. So I think, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
committed enough
absolutely.
to pay for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what did you find to be after you got into the program?
Hmm.
Um, what did you find to be the most helpful, I guess? Like, what were the different things that we worked on? How do we help you go from, I guess, in your own words, being completely clueless
Clueless.
to,
Exactly.
to where you are today? A lot of things had to happen in between, right? So,
Yeah,
what did we work on
exactly.
together?
So I think you have like a, what can I say, like a wholesome package of everything I need, like from technical to behaviorals, and you have some section around mentality, like
Mm,
for example, networking ethic. And that's very important because that's I don't know about that because I'm not a finance student and I'm not come from a business school. So that's real helpful. But I
mm,
think the part that helped me the most is about the networking part.
mm,
There's a networking package that you just teach how to write emails, something small like that, to like how to conduct a calls and just run out different scenario, like how to say in that particular scenario. It
mm,
helped me a lot in terms of I know what to talk about and I know what, so in that situation, what should I say? And more importantly, it just helped me find the right people, just the whole package. I just find the right people to talk, have the right expectations of the return rate. Like for example, what is my percent? Like
mm,
for example, so that I just eventually reach the right person I should talk to.
mhm.
And also like with regard to investment banking recruiting, since networking is the most important aspect, I think that's the section of your programs that helped me the most
Got
looking
it.
back.
Yeah, because I guess, like you said, if you look at most of the resources out there that are available, it's a lot of like interview guides or like financial modeling, Excel
Exactly.
courses, which
But
is,
that is, yeah, it's helpful, but that's exactly what you should focus on after you get the interviews. But so I'm just speaking of international students and non-target student,
yeah,
like in order to get to that stage, I need to get interviews. And for a non-target is it's the hardest part.
right,
And that's when the networking plays the most important role.
right. Well, it's, yeah, so to get interviews is a combination of having really good application materials, right? Which is like
Hmm.
your resume, cover letter, LinkedIn profile, which obviously we worked on as well, but that's
Yeah,
like,
we work on a lot.
yeah,
Yep.
but that was like the very beginning. That was like the first
Hmm.
thing that we did, right? And then work a
Exactly.
lot on your networking process. And then, only once we've done that, do we then move on to work on the interview aspect, right?
Yep.
And would you say that like you were basically starting from zero knowledge about how to network
Coolest. Okay.
to knowing exactly what to do and how to handle these situations and whatnot, right? Like even
Hmm.
though you come from a school with like no alumni, like how many like how many networking conversations would you say you've had over the last year?
Oh, so I mean, I stopped counting for a while, but
Yeah.
because I'm not target, so like I don't count. But so I think the amount of I think I sent out 1,500 cold email,
1,000
and
emails?
yeah,
Wow.
I'm not kidding. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
My rate is 5%, which means that out of 100 email, I got 5 replies, but it just replies, doesn't guarantee a call.
Mhm.
And I think I will call around like 700 phone calls around that. So
Seven,
it's a lot. Yeah.
700 phone calls?
Yeah. So it doesn't have to become from like the same person.
Wait, so
It
you,
could be from the same person. I mean, it could come from the same person, but it's just a
right.
lot.
So you had 1,000 cold emails and you had 700 phone calls. That's much higher than 5%.
I know, but so that is why I say like not with the same person. Maybe follow up with them a couple of times. And
Sure.
sometimes it doesn't come from email. Like for example, I go to a conference and I just
Hmm.
meet with them. But the
But, but
numbers or
even if you,
emails that I'm sorry.
but even if you talk to each person a couple times, you still spoke to like hundreds of people then.
Yeah, I was like a lot. Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I remember.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, sounds like you didn't really track your numbers super closely, so there's probably like
Yeah, because sometimes it's just pointless to track the number because I
right,
just want
sure.
one offer. Yeah.
Sure. You're just like, I'm just gonna talk to as many people as possible. But
Yeah.
the bottom line is you spoke to hundreds of people, and most of these people are not people from your school, right? Most of these people are
Some
not.
people in my school, but I just want to say, yeah, most of them are not my school. Let's say 90% not from my school.
Yeah,
Just
90%.
estimation.
Yeah, so there you have it, right? Like for a lot of our listeners, they have this false belief that you can only talk to people who are alumni. Well, if you go to a school that doesn't have a lot of alumni making, then you kind of have to go outside of that, right? So it's not really a choice that you have. And so, like, how many banks did you end up getting interviews with?
So I got interviewed with 2 banks. Actually 3, but Super Days with 2.
Okay. Um, and are you able to tell people which banks?
So I got interviewed with Goldman's and JPMorgan.
Okay. And then there was a third one.
The third one is William Blair.
Got it. Okay. So you got 3 interviews, and then you got 2 super days, and
Yeah,
then
with the 2 brackets.
yep. So you got 2 super days with Goldman and JP, and then obviously you got one offer in the end, right? Which
Mhm.
is really all we need, right? And so you got
All I knit. Well,
right, and so you got an offer from so you got a super day with Goldman and JP, and then you got an offer from one of them. Okay, got it.
yeah.
And so that's not bad, right? Because you said you found 4 or 5 banks out of the ones that you talked to that would actually sponsor, and then you got
Yeah.
interviews with 3 of them. So that's 3 out of 4 or 5, and then you got 2 super days, and then you
Yeah.
got an offer. So that's kind of like the funnel. Is that
Actually a good ratio. Looking back, it's not that bad.
it's just that the tough part is just that you have so few opportunities,
Yeah,
right?
it's just not a lot of options. And so
Yeah, you have so few opportunities, and so it's like every single interview that you do get, you have to be really, really good. And if you like kind of mess up on something, it's not like you get to do this as many times as
yeah.
right. So I
Yep.
remember I remember like your first super day, I think you went in and you did it, and then you came out and then you didn't get the offer, and obviously that was disappointing, right?
Hmm.
And then a little bit of time passed. I don't remember how long. And then you got
It's a month, 2 months.
yeah, a month or 2 months, and then you got your second super day.
Mhm.
And so this time, I knew that probably wasn't. Who knows? If you hadn't gotten the second one, like maybe there would have been more super days after that. But I knew that there might not be any more opportunities. Who knows, right? And so I knew that.
Yeah.
Hey, this you probably knew this too. It's just this super day was going to be really, really important, right?
It's like my end game.
Right,
Gotta win it.
yeah, and I knew that you were trying to put everything you had into it, and so that was when I told you I was like, hey, we should do a mock interview, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then so we did the mock interview, what, like a day before your super day? I think
Exactly.
we had a lot of trouble scheduling that mock interview, but I think you were pretty busy preparing. You had like
Yeah.
other people you were doing mock interviews with as well, right?
Hmm.
Can you talk about kind of like that last stage of that process in terms of like how you prepare for the interview and what do you feel like allows you to get ultimately get this offer?
So I think there's a lot of things to talk about that. There's a lot of factors, but I would talk about the mock interview first. I found this very helpful. So as I mentioned, I'm an international student. So the ways that I think, the ways that I speak is different. So it came out as my answer came out very unstructured.
Hmm.
And you pointed out it was very disappointed for me too because it was a day before the interview or a couple of days before the interview and I
Hmm.
didn't get it right. So you give me the star method and it works very well. And that's exactly the only words that I think whenever I answer any questions in the super days, and it helps me a ton. So
Hmm.
thank you so much about that. If I didn't do a mock, then maybe my answer would keep being unstructured. And I'm serious. Besides, so what I prepared, overalls, make sure that the technical part, it doesn't have to be. So for me, it doesn't have to be LBO or doesn't have to be M&A. It's just make sure that you can run through the three models very well and knows like in depth, and make sure that you know, for example, know about interest rate and talk about the Fed thoroughly. Or so, for example, my time there's a lot of news about the markets, for example, like interest rate or inverted yield curve. Make sure that you could spend like other 5 minutes or 10 minutes talking about it because they would drill you on that. And that's a technical. And the last one is the behaviorals. I think that's very important. Like show that why you interested in that investment banking, like why you interested in the bank, like to learn about a culture and show that you prepare through networkings and if a session. I think that's the three components, very important one that you have to
Got it.
project. Yep.
So the biggest thing was really like helping you put a lot more structure around your
Yeah,
answer
exactly. That's a big part. I'm
and
very bad at that.
that you come off as more organized with your thoughts as opposed to just kind of rambling about different things.
Exactly. I
Uh,
remember that. And more succinct answer.
I'm curious though because I wasn't I wasn't the first mock interview you did, right? Like you had done other mock interviews right before you mock interview with me, right? Like you had mock interviews with other bankers and stuff, right?
Hmm. Because
Did,
like people focus on different parts.
yeah,
So most of the bankers, so I have one friend, he focused on the technical part.
I see.
And so I have another person who she focused on the why banking and why that company part.
Uh-huh.
And so the other bankers focus on the market. So he asked me like, so what is going on in the Fed? For example, like that. So everyone focus on different part. So
Yeah.
I just make the most out of every situation. And I think that's one of the reasons why I prepare pretty well.
I
And
see.
for you, it's a behavioral.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So all the other bankers you interview with, it was kind of like they were all focused on like one more
Thing.
thorough aspect of the entire interview. But for a super day, I guess you had to cover all your bases and make sure that everything is on point. And so that's why it's good to get as much practice as possible.
Yeah, along the way.
Yeah. Because if you have like four of the five things and you drop the ball in the last one, you probably won't get the job, right?
Yeah, exactly what I found out, especially because I'm an international student. If I get one answer wrong, I know I'm not gonna get it. I
Yeah.
have to be like much better than other candidates so that I can like get the sponsorship.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure like if there's four things I have to hit, and make sure I hit like five,
Yeah.
just like more than they expect, so that I get them like the offer.
So how was that last actual super day itself? Like, did you just go in there, you felt good, you answered every single threw at you, or how did it actually go?
So for me is a one-on-one, three people, and they were VP and director.
Uh-huh.
So I think I got to have like really good preparation if you're prepared. So I came to a room very confident, and just think that this is my last shot. I will be confident. I think like exactly what I want to do. So I just do my best. I didn't give any pressure to myself that I have to take it. I just wanted myself to do the best,
Mhm.
and I answer with a very confident tone and just be calm because I can answer all of them. Just show them that I can do it
Mhm.
and just be personal. Just keep them like a personal point of view so that they just understand you as a person, and make sure you answer all the technical and market questions that important.
Hmm.
And overall, I think I have a good experience for 3 of them. And yeah, I think that's the reason why. I think it's the same with everyone. Like if you impress all the people, then you should got an offer.
Yep. So you had 3 interviews, all 3 of them went well,
Yeah.
and you didn't really get tripped up on anything because you were well prepared.
Yeah, so I got tricked up. Like there are some questions that I cannot answer just
Huh.
because I didn't know. Because I didn't know. Because I'm a student, so I'm not supposed to know everything about the markets or everything's about the Fed or everything's about technical questions. But
Uh-huh.
when they asked about that, I just paused for a second and I just be upfront. I don't really know about that, but give me some second to put up my thought. And I just leverage whatever I know before and give an assumption.
Yeah.
And well, that assumption went well, but it's still all come down to preparations and being cool, calm, and collected in the interview, I think.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Very cool. And then how long did it take for you to find out that you got the offer?
I think solidly a week, less than a week.
Less than a week.
Yeah, I interviewed on Thursday and I got a call on Wednesday. The following week. So it's pretty short.
Well, it feels short now, but at the time it probably felt very long, I'm guessing.
I think I was traveling then, and I'm just starting to like going to like couples other info session, but it was very great that I got the offer so that it can just have a rest finally after a
Yeah,
year.
I
Yeah,
mean, I mean, to be able to get an offer from a firm like at Goldman or JPMorgan's level, that's those are like
and it's
most,
in New York. It's my
and
favorite city.
it's in New York, right? And so
Exactly.
that's like most people's number one, number two choices right there, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a phenomenal outcome. So I'm super happy for you.
Thank
Um,
you.
do you have obviously, I think a lot of, especially the international students who are listening to this right now, like they would probably give a lot to be where you are. So, do you have any last minute advice for people before we wrap up the conversation? Like, what would you tell people who are maybe right now they're in a similar situation that you were in a year ago? You know they want to do investment banking, but they have all these challenges they have to overcome and they don't really know how to get started. Like, what would you
Mhm.
say to those people?
So, two things. So, first, make sure that investment banking is what you want to do in your future. Like, make sure, like, if you really, really, really want to do it. And second, I would sign up with Sam, like, for a call, and then start it. Because if you were clueless like me, like I am in the past, you should sign up because it's just a very good program. I would recommend.
Yeah, I totally paid Megan to say that at the
No, yeah, exactly. I got like a huge commission for that.
I'm just kidding.
Confirmed.
I did not do that for the record. So, but
Oh, I mean, I'm being honest about that.
no, I
Very grateful about
appreciate
that.
that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, look, guys, like I think hopefully Megan is a great inspiration for a lot of you. Like I said at the beginning of this interview, I speak to a lot of international students who want to break into investment banking. Right? I would say for international students, the biggest thing is that one, you got to understand it can be done. Like it is harder for you, no doubt about it. But like, if you start early enough, right? Because
Exactly.
you can start early. You have to start early because if you don't start early, like a lot of people when they recruit, they start too late, and all the bulge bracket banks and all the elite boutiques and even like some of the better middle market banks, like if you start after those banks have already finished recruiting, then you're kind of screwed because those are the
Yeah,
banks.
sad.
Those are the banks that will
Exactly.
actually consider sponsoring people.
But that's really ironic because all the big bang, which are like the most competitive one, are the ones that sponsor.
Well,
So
yeah,
it's
but it's because they're bigger and they have the
yeah, they have
resources.
the like capacity.
Yeah, they have the infrastructure, they have the resources
Exactly.
to be able to do something like that. Whereas, like, if you wait until only the small banks are left, they don't have the human resources department or whatever to be able to like handle this type of uh,
Paperwork.
this type of work, right? And so even if they want to hire you, they just can't. And so that's the biggest thing I would say for you guys is make sure you start early. And then the other thing that's kind of related to that is like start early and be as efficient as possible, right? Because the flip side of not starting early is like, hey, if you're a little bit behind, then the way to make up for that is to be more efficient, right? If you're more efficient, you can do more with less time, then that might be okay too, right? And I think really the way to be efficient is to get as much help as you could possibly get from people who are actually knowledgeable about how to do this stuff, and from people who have actually helped other people do this very successfully, so that they can help you avoid the mistakes that you would have made otherwise, right? Because as an international student, you're not going to have like 10 interviews or 20 interviews or whatever. You're going to have maybe a handful of interviews if you're lucky, right? And the key is to, like, one, be able to get those interviews, but two, when you get those interviews, you can't mess it up, right? And so it's just way too risky to try to get through that entire process on your own. And like, if you make a silly mistake somewhere, then you just wasted all your time and energy for nothing, right? So I would say, if you guys are serious about getting into investment banking, and you're the type of person who understands that you need to be willing to make an investment in yourself to get the outcome that you want, then I would encourage you to book a call with our team. Okay, you can book a free strategy session, that initial call that I had with Megan as well, where we just learn about your situation, what it is that you feel like you need help with, and then we can talk about if we think we can help you, or if not, what we think you should do instead, right? But either way, we're going to help you come up with a game plan that we think is going to be best for you, based on whatever your circumstances are. Okay, so again, this call is, there's no obligation, right? It's completely free, and if nothing else, you walk away with some advice and clarity on what you need to do. But you can book this call at www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street in the URL is abbreviated to ST, so it's wallstmastermind.com/apply. Okay, and like I said, you'll speak with someone on our team. We'll help you determine the best path forward for you to hopefully get this really, really difficult offer to get, right? But we've helped a lot of people get there, and so there's a good chance that we'll be able to help you too, as long as you come to us early enough. Okay, so I think that'll be it for today. And Megan, again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and talk to everyone and
Mhm.
share your experiences and serve as an inspiration for other people that maybe are in a similar situation that you were in a year ago. And obviously, super happy for you.
Thank you.
You got into one of the best banks, right, in New York, financial capital of the world. The future is super bright for you, and I'm excited to
Hopefully. Yeah,
see
we'll try
what
my
you do
best.
from here. Yeah, like,
Mhm. Thank you
definitely.
so much for supporting. Like,
Yeah,
that's
no,
huge.
absolutely. Keep us posted, right?
Sure.
Don't be a stranger, and let's stay in touch.
Yep, definitely.
All right, awesome. Guys, thank you guys for tuning in today, and that'll be it for this time. We'll be back soon again for another client interview for you guys in the near future. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Bye.